Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela, bas נחמה שיפרה, and in honor of Rabbi Trump. We are now starting the second section of the halachas of Mezuza. This is Siman Yud Aleph, the 11th chapter of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. In the first section, we looked at three concepts. They were which entrances need a Mezuza, where it is placed, and how to put up a Mezuza. We're going to look at three concepts in the second section now, which are the size of the room and the requirements of the entranceway. And then we're going to look at atypical enclosures, and then finally respect for the Mezuza. So let's start at the very beginning. The first concept for today is the size of the room and the requirements of the entranceway. The Torah tells us that you write them al mezuzas beisecha, on the lintels or the doorposts of your house. The Gemara in Sukkah tells us that the halacha of Moshe Sinai, that the tradition from Sinai is that a word, the idea of a house is something which is daled al daled, 4 cubits by 4 cubits. So a few basic questions. What is 4 amas by 4 amas? So we're going to take the measurements of Rav Moshe Feinstein, and that is, Rav Moshe understands an amma is 21.3 inches or 54 centimeters. So 4 amas would look at like 85.2 inches or 7.1 feet and 2.1 meters, 1.6 meters. So therefore, if one's looking at an area of 4 by 4, that's 50.4 square feet or 4.7 square meters to require mezuzah. What happens if it does it actually have to be 4 by 4? Does it need to be square? So this actually happens to be a debate, meaning to say, let's say I have a room which has the area of 50 square feet, but it is not 4 by 4. It's elongated, it's long, it's circular. In that case, it's a safek whether one there's a doubt as to whether one needs a mezuzah. Obviously, most rooms incorporate that the 4 by 4, the 7.1 by 7.1 feet actually in size as well. What does the entrance need to have? So what are the requirements of an entrance? So it needs to have 2 doorposts which are underneath a lintel. They all need to be clear as well. The door wall itself can act as the doorposts if, of course, the wall ends. So meaning then one looks at the flush wall and one looks at it, there's an entranceway formed by it as well. But so one has to be careful, because sometimes in a lot of modern design houses, the lintel is flush. That means to say it's all the way up to the ceiling, there's nothing there. That would not necessitate a mezuzah as well. What happens if there's only one doorpost? So there's only one doorpost on the left, no mezuzah. If there's one on the right, it's a safek. So what I do in a case of safek, of doubt, so I put up a mezuzah without a bracha, or I would do a bracha on earlier rooms and then incorporate that, so it's sort of subsumed under that bracha as well. What about archways? Archways are considered lintels, and therefore one should put it up with a bracha as well. What if the doorposts on the one side is sort of like this unusual situation where I have a doorpost going straight up on the one side, and the other side it starts going up and then cuts into the wall. It's kind of like a window in the wall. Sometimes you'll see it's between like a kitchen and another room where there will be like a little wall. So the entrance is kind of looks like really like a flag post, right? So the one side straight up, and the other side makes a window in the wall. So do I put a mezuzah in this or not? So if it's on the right side going in as the straight up wall, then obviously it goes on the straight up wall. If it's on the left, if the right side is this sort of this window, this sort of like leaning into the wall window. So if there's 10 tefachim, if there's 10, which is around about 35 inches on the side wall before it goes inwards, then that one will put it there. If it is lower than 10 tefachim, one will put it deeper into the indent where that window is reaches as well. Do I need a door to put a mezuzah up there? So this is a debate between the Rishonim, and so there are those who say one has to have a door to necessitate a mezuzah. We paskin today that we do put up a mezuzah even if there isn't a door, but we do without a bracha in deference to that opinion as well. So therefore, if one is setting up one's house, one would want to set up all the mezuzahs that are obviously the best of quality for the rooms with doors, and one says the bracha on one of those, and then one would attach the ones the mezuzahs to the ones without doors, the archways or entranceways without doors, afterwards included in that bracha as well. However, if one intends to put up a door but there's no door now, one should not put it up until the door is actually there. What about a cellar? So if one has a cellar and the doors open up, it's a sort of a horizontal entranceway. In that case, that is not considered a doorpost. The doorposts, for the Torah perspective, need to be vertical, and therefore that would not require a mezuzah for that open trapdoor cellar to get into that type of cellar. Our next concept is non-typical enclosures. So the Torah tells us al mezuzas beisecha, on the entranceways, the doorposts of your house. So that's a person's dwelling. So there are certain things which are not considered dwellings as well. So for instance, first question, does my sukkah need a mezuzah? The answer is No, it's a temporary dwelling. So any temporary dwelling like that, which is non-permanent, does not require mezuzah. Obviously, if the sukkah is within one's house and that's a natural room, then one would require mezuzah, meaning to say if it's a removable ceiling. What about my store? So if the store is seasonal, I just rent it just for a few months during a particular time, it does not require mezuzah. If it is permanent, then I would require a mezuzah as well. What about outdoor pavilions? So let's say open walls, but there's like a fence around it. So if the fence is 35 inches high, if the fourth side is completely open, it would not require mezuzah. But if it does curve in and there's an entranceway, one would require mezuzah even in that as well. What about a guard box at the entrance of a property? That does not require mezuzah because one has to live there, and this is not considered living there. However, the Kitzur points out, some say one should, so one should put up with a bracha. What about a balcony from a house? Again, this is not a place to live, but the Kitzur points out that one should put it there because without a bracha, because there are those who say one should. What about a garden? A garden is not a place to live, so there's no mezuzah. What about a pen for animals? This is not a place to live for human habitation, so therefore no mezuzah. However, if any of these cases, a guard box, a balcony, a garden, are attached to an area which is a livable area, then one says a bracha because that is an entrance way to the actual house itself. As well, the way it's expressed in the Kitzur is, let's say you have 10 rooms and 9 of those rooms lead one to another, but none of them are big enough to require mezuzah, but the 10th room does, then all of those other rooms get mezuzah because they already considered entrance ways to that other to the room as well, which leads us to one other question, which is what happens if I have a small room? So a room which is used for storage, like a walk-in closet, but it does not have the area necessary for a mezuzah. But its usage is to store things, to hang clothes, and I can walk into it. In this case, there are 2 reasons to say that one should put up the mezuzah. One is because it is an entrance to the big room, which does require mezuzah. So we sort of eliminate the room and it's considered an entrance. The other one, a way of saying it is no, its usage is not to live, its usage is to store, and that would be sufficient for mezuzah. Either way, it is one puts it up without a bracha in such circumstances. Of course, this is provided one can actually walk into it. If it's a closet where one cannot walk into it, that does not require mezuzah. Our final concept for today is the concept of respect for the mezuzah. So the mezuzah contains the word of Hashem and 2 sections of the Torah, therefore needs to be treated respectfully and placed in places that are respectful as well. So what kind of room should I be careful not to put the mezuzah on up on? So anything which is used for changing, unclothing, or for going to the restroom is a problem. So this includes the bathroom, a mikveh, a spa, areas where people are constantly getting changed or using for just activities one should not consider respectful. Then mezuzah should not be placed in that case as well. What about a cattle barn or a chicken coop? So technically speaking, they do need a mezuzah because this is not considered tashmish shel ganai, but there's a question as to whether one puts up a mezuzah in a place where there's not storage or just for storage and not for living of human beings, and therefore perhaps without a bracha. What about the kids' rooms? So the kids are getting changed, there's diapers and so on. So in this case, if it's happening all the time, one should be careful about that. But the Kitzur says if this happens from time to time, then it's best to cover the mezuzah double covered, and one of them should be opaque. So one should make sure that there's opaque covers on the mezuzah so that it's not exposed to nakedness. And general rule is that mezuzahs are placed in opaque covers and on the outside doorpost of rooms, of bedrooms where people might be getting changed as well. So when the door's closed and they're changing, they're not exposing themselves to the mezuzah as well. Very important to plan this ahead as well. What about the entrance to a Jewish-owned building in which non-Jews either rent or own within that building? So in that case, there's no mezuzah because on the main entrance, because seeing as a non-Jew has access as well, there is a concern it could be desecrated or misused. If I'm moving, very big question, may I take the mezuzahs with me? So if a non-Jew is moving in after one leaves, then one must take the mezuzahs with them. If a Jew is moving in, one needs to leave them for them or give them the option of buying them from one. If the person does not exercise that option, one may take the mezuzahs with them. If one is renting, and so one does not know necessarily who's going to be the next rentee, so in this case, it's a little more complicated. So one can ask the landlord. Usually the landlord will repaint between different renters. And so in this case, if they're going to paint, you're allowed to take them down before the painting because they should not be ruined, and then one does not have to put them back up and give them to the next person as well. If one is able to find out who the next renter is, it'll be a good idea to offer them the option as well. This does not mean to say the mezuzah cases, but the mezuzah parchments, which is what the mezuzah is itself. What do I do when I walk past my mezuzah? So I need to place my hand on it, my right hand, and kiss the mezuzah, kiss the hand. And this should obviously not be touching the mezuzah itself. It should be covered. There's the name of Hashem, Shin Dalad Yud, which is on the outside of the actual parchment of the mezuzah itself. And when one touches it and one leaves one's house, one should say the words based on Pasuk Hashem Shomri, Hashem Tzili al Yad Yamini, Hashem is my God, Hashem is my shadow on my right hand, Hashem Yishmor Tzeisi Uvo'i Me'atav Ha'olam, Hashem will guard my leaving and my coming from now and forever. And then finally, last question is, how often should one check one's mezuzahs? So for individuals on one's house, one should check twice every 7 years, like tefillin. But for communal mezuzahs, then twice in a yovel, which means average once every 25 years, just to make sure. Of course, this is when there's no incidents or concerns that would make one think that one needs to check one's mezuzahs. With this, we conclude the general halachas of mezuzahs. Obviously, there's so much more to study. This takes months and months to learn in depth, but this is a general overview. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful